Hello, welcome back to my channel. I have my glasses on. They are not on the top of my head, so this means that this is a wrap up that I didn't want to film. So yes, like every time I have these glasses on, it's because I'm filming a wrap up. And it's not because I don't like to talk about the books I'm reading. It's just that I really hate this format. I don't know how else to do wrap-ups, but thankfully today we have quite a shorter wrap-up, and that makes me really happy. So ignore the glare in the glasses and let's get started. So obviously, like with always, we're going to get right into the statistics for the month. So this month, in the month of January, the first month of the year, I read 9 books. Not typical of me, but I was struggling. I turned 30. I had a big report to do for work. So you know what, 9 books, and they were quite big. Pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. That totaled out to 3,471 pages. So that's roughly 112 pages per day. That's above my 100 pages per day goal. So we're there, we're getting there. I also read 58 hours of audiobooks listened. The pages that I read over the course of the month are not all physically. A lot of them this month were in audio because that's the only way I feel like I can consume books right now. Let's get into the ratings because that is the most exciting part. I read 1 5-star book, 4 4-star books, and 4 3-star books, 0 2 stars, 0 1 stars, but I did have 1 DNF. That is extra pages that are not included in this. But whatever. And that averaged out to a 3.83, which is actually fantastic. I thought I had a shitty month, but I didn't. And then just in regards to the author identity, 4 of the books were written by female authors and 5 of the books were written by male authors. I read 7 adult books, 1 middle grade book, and 1 young adult book. And then just in regards to the format, like I said, I read 6 audiobooks, 2 ebooks, and 1 book in its physical form. So let's get into the wrap up, starting with the books I won't be talking about. So I just won't be talking about these books because there are other videos on my channel where I go into much more details than I honestly feel like doing right now. I started a new series on my channel this month called Finish a Series with Me, where I will be just finishing series, and hopefully if you've read the books you watch, you'll let me know how you feel. Do we feel the same? That kind of thing. The first series I started with was the Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel. Waking Gods is the 1 5-star book I read this month. And then I read Only Human, which I gave 3 or 3.5 stars to. A disappointment, obviously, as a finale. However, I did still enjoy this series overall, so you could definitely go watch that video, see what the situation is. This month, Haunani and I also finished out the Heroes of Olympus series with the Blood of Olympus. Another disappointing finale, so you could go watch that video, which I will link up above. Basically going into my feelings on this finale of the series, but also I think my feelings on the series overall. I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. It wasn't the worst series finale I ever read, but it definitely wasn't the best, and I definitely get into those feelings, and I think this also attributed to part of my bleh feeling of the month. So again, that video is up above. This month I also read Written in the Stars by Alexandria Belfort with the Kiss and Tell book club, and that is a romance book club that I am co-hosting with Jenny, Dorothy, and Zoe. So if I can, I will leave a link to the live show down below. But again, another 3-star book. And I think that that's why I have a more negative impression of the month, because I definitely had a lot of 3-star reads. And then before we get into the books that I read and I guess really enjoyed, because these are the ones that I probably enjoyed the most, we'll go with a DNF. This is an arc I received of The Tatami Galaxy by Tomihiko Morimi, and it just was not for me. I was very excited for this book, especially because I knew it was based off of an anime, and that really excited me because obviously if I enjoyed the book, I could go watch the anime. But I do think that this might have a trope that I think works better in a visual form rather than a literature form. This is kind of like a Groundhog Day type of vibe. It follows an unnamed protagonist as he kind of relives a day over and over. He spent 3 years making all the wrong decisions and befriending all the wrong people. But what if there was a universe where he could do everything right? And basically it is divided into multiple parts, and every part is the same day. And I think it would have worked better if our unnamed protagonist like acknowledged or realized that he was reliving the same day, but it's kind of just like short stories of the same day, and sometimes you're rereading the same paragraphs over and over again, and it just wasn't for me. Maybe he does realize it at the end of the novel and it like becomes this amazing like revelation. Really didn't enjoy it because it had that repetitive style, and I think I just felt like I wasn't really getting anything from it. So it was a DNF, but I will be putting this in a little free library, and I'm willing to give this away to anyone who wants it. Okay, let's get into the books that I enjoyed this month. The first book I read for the year, and the first book that I started off the year with, is Briardark by S.A. Harrion. And this was a really interesting book. It follows a group of like geologists in a sense, and they are entering a forest to like observe things about the nature, because there's a lot of like weird phenomena going on in like the fauna and flora of the region. At the same time that this plot is happening, there is another plot that takes place in a different time, where a worker at a university discovers the files of this research project, and when trying to find the owners of this research, he discovers that this research has yet to happen. So it was really, really interesting. It reminded me of that horror movie with the anthropologists who go into the caves, but it was really, really creepy. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up finishing this in 2 sittings because it was so enthralling. And like I mentioned, I was genuinely scared when reading it. It reminded me a lot of my like horror movies that scare the shit out of me. I can be extremely claustrophobic, and even though this takes place in a forest, that claustrophobic vibe, if you've watched like Lost or something like that, like where you know something's around you or you know something's wrong but you can't really escape, hate that to my core. The 2 pieces of media that this book is comped to, so it's House of Leaves and Lost, I think, like I said, is very, very, very reminiscent of the book. I think both of those aspects are in it. So if you enjoy both of those things, I think you will really, really like this book. Holden, who is the character that discovers the documents in the future, is a really interesting character, and you don't feel like his reasoning for wanting to return the documents in the first place or wanting to discover the mystery of these documents is unfounded. Like, he finds these things on a computer, they open up randomly every day. He's enthralled, like I was enthralled. I completely understood why he wanted to discover this mystery. I think both timelines had a purpose in this novel, and I felt the horror in both of them. Even though majority of the horror is occurring in the forest, the horror that Holden, the character that finds the documents, is feeling as he's watching these videos and reading these reports is real. You just feel as disoriented and confused as the characters in the novel, and I love that. The only thing that I didn't enjoy about this novel, and the reason that I ended up giving it a lower rating, is because the novel isn't complete on its own. It is a series, so you don't get the answers to your questions at the end of the novel, and I think I just prefer my horror to be in like standalone novels rather than a series, because I just want to feel satisfied at the end, and I didn't get that feeling. So while the novel ends on that interesting cliffhanger, I didn't feel satisfied by it, and I gave it a 4-star read. I also realized that I left my doors open to let in fresh air, and now that I'm talking about a horror book, I'm just gonna go close them and I'll come back. Next, we'll move into my continuation of Brandon Sanderson. As you know, in 2021, if you cared and followed my channel, I was reading 1 Brandon Sanderson book a month. That goal fell off in 2022 just because I think I read so much of him that I was like, okay, enough, I'm caught up. And then he went and released 4 new novels in 5 actually, because The Lost Metal came out as well. So 5 novels are coming out. The Lost Metal's already out, but basically I'm way more behind than I thought. So I decided I'm going to continue with my Brandon Sanderson reads this year. I'm going to get caught up on him. I'm going to read everything, and that way I will never be behind. And that is my goal. So I started off the year with Edge Dancer by him, and this is a novella, but it's like 200 pages. A novella that occurs in between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. And you don't necessarily have to read this book, but it follows a character that you meet in Words of Radiance called Lift. And in Words of Radiance, you learn that Lift has her own spren, kind of like Kaladin. And once the revelations that happen at the end of Words of Radiance happen, you kind of realize how important like Lift might be. I can't really explain what this book is about without kind of spoiling the end of Words of Radiance, so I don't want to, but just know that I'm pretty grateful that I read this book, partially because I didn't really like Lift's interlude perspective in Words of Radiance, and I was kind of like annoyed that because I felt like she was going to become a more like prevalent character, and I didn't really want to go into Edge Dancer because I was like, I don't really like her, so like, do I actually care? And I'm happy to report that I did end up really loving her. This book, surprise, surprise, add some character depth and development to her character. And while Lift is quite brash, and I think that that is the main reason I didn't enjoy her, I know that that is the main reason a lot of people don't enjoy Lift, I think this novella really adds like layers to her character, and you really get to see like her story and her main motivations and why she behaves the way that she does. I enjoyed also seeing other developments of other characters that I know will be important in Oathbringer, but I think the like mystery characters and all of this, if you're not someone who's like hunting for Easter eggs or like the entire Cosmere, like every little detail, the book kind of doesn't become fun, because it's like I'm reading it and I know that this is an important character, but has he come up before? Who knows? Will I see him again? Probably. But I don't really think you can care enough about specific characters unless you read everything, and I think that that's one of my main critiques for Brandon Sanderson. I think it is fun, but if you're not like fully paying attention from the beginning, you kind of have to reread things to learn where other characters fall into. So it's like these characters that I learn and know and see in other books, I like. I get the appeal of an Easter egg. But when you weren't originally looking for it, I can understand that that can be frustrating, and that's part of how I felt within this book with one specific character that appears. I did go onto Reddit and like obviously I learned and like understood what's happening, but I think it did take some enjoyment away from me because I just felt stupid for not knowing things. And I felt like not a like real Brandon Sanderson fan because I don't like understand the Easter eggs sometimes, and it's a little frustrating to read, and it's frustrating to go have to read extra information about a character that says a couple of lines in this book. However, Wendell the Spren is a perfect little cinnamon roll. I love him so much. I think he's perfect for Lift. I think it's so cute. I love their dynamic, and I can't wait to see like more of that dynamic in Oathbringer or whatever book that they come from. Don't come for me. I don't know everything. But yeah, I ended up really enjoying this more than I thought I would, and I gave it a 4 stars. And then after that, I read another one of those secret books that I was talking about with Brandon Sanderson, Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is a Cosmere book, but doesn't take place in a world of the Cosmere that we've seen previously. So this book follows a young girl named Tress who has grown up on this island, never really left, and the people of her town aren't really supposed to leave. They've been taught to kind of stay, and that's to help the like Duke of the island essentially. And another reason why they don't leave is because their island is surrounded by, it's not water, the oceans of this world are filled with spores. If the lighting or anything changed, I'm sorry. I also had to order Chinese food because we're eating it tonight. So where was I? Tress of the Emerald Sea. They're surrounded by the spores. Did I talk about that? They're dangerous. They're mighty. And basically the only reason why Tress is leaving her small island is because she's off to rescue the Duke's son, who he sent away because he's not like following the rules. And Tress is like, well, I'm in love with him and I need to go save him. And she goes off on this pirate adventure, and the rest of the story goes from there. I have to say that I was really worried I wasn't going to like this book because the first 30% of the book, I can't even encapsulate the way I was feeling and how frustrated I was with the book, and how like I was like, oh my god, this is not for me. I am going to actually hate a Brandon Sanderson book. I was just not vibing with it. I didn't want to pick it up. I was so bored of what was happening. I was so confused by the world building. I didn't understand the spores at all. Nobody ever explained the spores, and that's not our fault like as reviewers, because the book came out the 1st of January and there was no knowledge of what it was. So that's not our fault, you know. However, I was still really confused. And I think I was a little off-put by the narration style. I didn't understand it. However, once I got over that hump, connected with our main character, Tress, and started to notice those Easter eggs and the addition to the Cosmere and who the narrator was, I got more and more hooked. I really began to root for Tress. I wanted her to succeed in her journey. And although the narration style was extremely jarring, like I said in the beginning, it really started to like warm up to me. And I started to enjoy the like fairy tale whimsy type of weird vibe that it's adding to the novel, and how it really dives into that main character of Hoyt. And if you know who Hoyt is, you know how important he is to the entire Cosmere, and the ending kind of makes a bit more sense when you understand who Hoyt is. So much is revealed in the final 30% of the book, and it really opens up the Cosmere as this universe, because I think when you read Brandon Sanderson, you don't really see how the Cosmere is a solar system, how it is a universe, but it really is like an entire solar system. And I think this final 30% really opened up how it is a solar system. And I was squealing because Sanderson made me feel so smart. And even though I think he did it on purpose, and I think the like Easter eggs and explanations that he was leaving were fairly obvious, I felt like I had a master's thesis in Brandon Sanderson. And that's what I was looking for in Edge Dancer, to be honest. And the fact that nothing went over my head, I immaculate. I felt like a genius. I loved the reading experience at the end. I went from really not liking this book to absolutely loving it at the end. The ending was beautiful. The way Tress developed as a main character was lovely to see. The found family aspect of it was chef's kiss. I will definitely be rereading this, especially because it's a standalone. I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars just because that hump in the beginning was difficult AF, but it was enjoyable. And I gave it a 4 stars, again, like I said. Then I read another arc for Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is Talia Hibbert's first delve into the YA age category. And I definitely think she really did a good job. I've only read from Talia Hibbert before in the Brown Sisters trilogy. So I knew that her writing was going to work for me. And everybody was reading this book. Everybody was loving it. So I wanted to be a part of it. I got the arc. This book follows 2 characters, one named Brad and one named Celine. Brad is pretty much perfect. He's a star football player. He's able to manage his OCD fairly well, and he comes up on the top of all of his classes. It's just that Brad doesn't know what he wants to do in the future. Celine, on the other hand, does very well in school and knows that she wants to be a lawyer. In the hopes of both of them getting into this program to help them get into colleges, they find themselves on the same survival camp task, and they realize that they have to go from academic rivals to rivals in this camp setting. Obviously, we know where it goes, of course. So like with most reviewers, I'm just gonna go with the clever pun that this was absolutely totally unfairly cute. I really enjoyed our 2 main characters in the book. They were both really different from one another in regards to their personalities, but also in their passions. And you could definitely see how the 2 of them had gotten along so well when they were children and why they would then dive into this rivalry in their teenagehood. I found it really nice to read about the challenges that both of the characters face, particularly with Celine and her inability to express emotions, because that might be touching on something that I am also very insecure about. But I also found the discussions on dealing with your future and college applications and what not to do and all of that to be really helpful for younger readers. And Brad dealing with his struggle with OCD was also really important for that reason as well. The only downfall for the book, and I think this is my big downfall with romance in general, is really the miscommunication trope, which is definitely true to the way that teenagers behave. I understand that it was just a teensy little bit annoying, but otherwise this book was super cute. I gave it 3.5 stars. I would highly recommend it if you're really into romance, young adult romance. I think it was really cute. And I would highly recommend this book. And then finally, the last book I will be talking about in this video was one of my highly anticipated reads of 2022. This is The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. If you watched my best books of 2022, I put The Atlas 6 on that list because oh my God, was my life changed after I read that book. Olivia Blake, after one book, became one of my favorite authors. I definitely think this one adds to it. I just love her writing, but I digress. The Atlas 6 follows a group of 6 young adults who are all approached by this man named Atlas to join a coveted group of individuals who will be taking care of the knowledge that is found within the Library of Alexandria. However, the 6 of them quickly learn that one of them must go because only 5 can remain at the institution. And obviously the story unfolds from there. I was counting on this being one of my 5-star reads for the month of January, so spoiler alert, it was not. It just didn't, I think, live up to the expectations I had. Like I said, the Atlas 6, I truly feel deep inside me, changed my life. The ending of this book, look, I still tabbed this book to filth. I still made notes. I really enjoyed everything that I read in this book. It was just missing a je ne sais quoi. But the ending of the book, I think, really made up for the rest of the novel, because I think once you read the ending, you start piecing together a lot of things that happened throughout the book. But the beginning of the novel, much like with Tress actually, was a struggle to get through. I don't know, saying this out loud now, and I realize it happened with 2 books, if it was just me this month, but boy, oh boy, was it really, really hard to get into, and it made me appreciate the ending. Ending was just the actual point of this book, and the beginning was just a lot of filler content to just add to our characters, which I often do enjoy, but I think in this one, it just felt a tad too much. I still adore all of the characters, even Callum, he really grew on me in this book, and having to wait for the 3rd book, possibly the finale, will be the death of me, because I don't know how Olivia Blake is going to end this plot in 3 books. If anyone can do it, it's Olivia Blake. I trust her completely with my life. Like I said, I love her so much, but it makes me really nervous. I gave this 4 stars because obviously the writing was still fantastic. The characters were still fantastic. Olivia Blake is just a mastermind with her world building. Loved it. Just that beginning was a little a little difficult. And that's it. Those are all of the books I read in the month of January. If you read any of these books, please let me know how you felt. And if you read Tress of the Emerald Sea, please talk to me about it. Okay, thank you. And if you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I tell you every time, but it does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things. So I will see you next time. Okay, bye.